What's up guys, back with another Borderlands 2 countdown video, and today I'm going to be going over guns that I think are surprisingly powerful in Borderlands 2. Now before we start, the idea behind the choices here is to have weapons that don't necessarily appear to be good at first, however actually end up being really powerful once you figure out how they work. Now again, these weapons might not look powerful at first glance, but with proper understanding and or a good build, some of these weapons can prove to be quite powerful and can even possibly become some of the best guns in the game. But I guess without further ado, these will be the top 10 most surprisingly powerful guns and weapons of Borderlands 2, starting now. Number 10. The Sawbar Assault Rifle. So the Sawbar is an often misunderstood but potentially quite powerful assault rifle. The problem with the Sawbar is that the initial projectile damage is fairly average for an assault rifle, and because the Sawbar uses a variant of the Jacob's barrel, you're gonna get relatively low fire rates. Plus, since the Sawbar is a bandit weapon, you may also find that you're getting fairly long reload times as well. So there's a pretty good chance that when you first use the Sawbar, you may not like it. However, if you can manage to properly gauge the distance when the projectile splits and explodes, you may come to find that the Sawbar is surprisingly powerful, particularly if you combine the Sawbar with the B shield, as this will allow you to boost the damage of the Sawbar's unlisted projectiles, and those unlisted projectiles will get full amp damage. Now, the thing that you do need to be aware of is how many projectile speed buffs that you have, and this is because certain skills like Zero's Velocity or Maya's Accelerate can increase the distance at which the Sawbar's projectiles split and explode, and this can make the weapon much harder to use than it otherwise would be. But if you want the Sawbar, you can acquire it from either Legendary Loot Midgets or Oh My God What the Hell from the Digistruct Peak Challenge. Just keep in mind that you will only need the first Ultimate Vault Hunter upgrade pack in order to get this gun. Number 9. The Morningstar Sniper Rifle. Now, at first glance, the Morningstar is just another annoying talking weapon that was added into the game. However, what makes the Morningstar special is its ability to apply critical hit bonus boosts upon scoring a critical hit. And as you can imagine, this particular ability can stack, thus providing the player with a fairly decent damage boost while you're fighting off enemies. Now, if you use the Morningstar in a way that wasn't necessarily intended by the developers, the Morningstar can be used to perform a glitch that massively boosts the critical hit damage of other weapons. And while I won't go over every single specific of how to do this, if you look up the Evil Smasher glitch, you can figure out how to do this pretty easily, as it's basically based around the same principle. I think the best part about the Morningstar is how easy it is to get. After all, the Morningstar is a quest reward weapon for a side quest called Hyperion Contract 873, and this side quest basically consists of killing 100 bandits. So if you can do that, you will get this awesome weapon. Number 8. The Longbow Sniper Rifle. Now, the longbow is a weapon that I can definitely see a lot of people writing off, and this is because the longbow is fairly difficult to use as a result of the lack of a scope and the fact that the longbow's arrow projectiles have a tendency to travel in a slight arc, which can make it difficult to hit enemies from a distance. Or, like other Hyperion sniper rifles, if you're playing on either Xbox 360 or PS3, or you just have a low field of view, the longbow's inherent weapon sway can make it very difficult to use. However, assuming you have a high field of view and you can consistently score criticals with the longbow, I would say that the longbow can be surprisingly powerful. After all, the longbow already has a fairly respectable amount of base damage, and provided you're properly matching this gun against the proper elemental weakness, you should be able to deal a crap ton of damage. Now, because of the lack of the scope, I actually tend to prefer this gun on Maya, as her phase lock can make scoring criticals really easily, as you can just hold the enemies in place. Now, if you want a longbow, you'll need to simply kill the badass creeper that's a part of the Minecraft Easter egg located in Caustic Caverns. If you can, try to get a version of the longbow with the Venture prefix. Number 7. The Jolly Roger Shotgun. Now, maybe it's just me, but I've always had the impression that most bandit weapons kinda suck, and while there are some exceptional legendary items like the Slagga or the Bada Boom, my experiences with a lot of the red text bandit shotguns have been really hit or miss. For example, guns like the Dog and Rock Salt are better as early game weapons, the Teeth of Terramorphous can prove to be fairly wonky, and even the legendary Sledge's shotgun is a bit of a disappointment. The Jolly Roger, on the other hand, is actually a pretty amazing shotgun, and might just be the best bandit shotgun in Borderlands 2 by far. Now, a lot of the reason for this is due to the Jolly Roger's high projectile count, and you might be surprised to know that the Jolly Roger is roughly on par with the Jacob's Quad in terms of projectile count. However, unlike the Quad, you're only consuming 3 projectiles per shot with the Jolly Roger, and since this gun can come in any element, you may actually find that it's more practical than the Jacob's Quad in some situations. Otherwise, this gun is fairly straightforward, and if you want a Jolly Roger, you can acquire it from the Just Desserts for Desert Deserters side quest mission from the Captain SCARLETT DLC. And while this quest is somewhat involved, it's fairly easy to do, and I would say that it's definitely worth the reward. Number 6. The Tattler SMG. So the Tattler is a pretty surprising weapon. While I think we can agree that the Tattler is fairly straightforward, I don't think you would think that the Tattler is potentially one of the best SMGs in Borderlands 2. After all, it's a Seraph weapon from the SCARLETT DLC, which means it probably has awful accuracy and lousy projectile speed. And some may also find that it's kind of weird that the Tattler also spawns with a blade attachment, which could give you the wrong impression of how the Tattler is meant to be used. However, provided you're pairing the Tattler with the proper build, the Tattler can be a truly devastating weapon on Maya. Not only can Maya improve the projectile speed thanks to Accelerate, but you'll also find that this particular gun has great synergy with skills like Wreck or Chain Reaction. And if you pair the Tattler with a Cat class mod, you're going to get even higher damage than you would otherwise. And while it's true that you're going to need to kill Hyperius to get this gun in Ultimate Vulture mode, if you ask me, I think it's definitely worth it, as the Tattler is one of the best SMGs in Borderlands 2. Number 5. The Gunnerang Pistol. Now, at first glance, the Gunnerang is your standard TDR pistol. However, upon reloading, the Gunnerang, as it's named, functions more like a boomerang and flies through the air until it hits its intended target. However, you may be surprised to know that the Gunnerang is capable of the most powerful TDR reload damage for Borderlands 2's vanilla game weapons, though we'll touch on the DLC weapons later. The downside is that the Gunnerang generally tends to excel against just one enemy, as you can't really control where the Gunnerang will actually land. For this reason, I think many players ultimately prefer the Babymaker, as it is a lot more easier to use and is simply more predictable, even though it is weaker. However, I would say that in one-on-one fights with something like a raid boss, you may find that the Gunnerang can potentially be more useful. Otherwise, there's not really a whole lot else to the Gunnerang. If you do want one, you can farm one from Rackman in the fridge after you've completed the Cold Shoulder side quest, which will unlock that particular pathway that you can use to get to Rackman. Number 4. The Hail Assault Rifle. There's a pretty good chance that the first time you used the Hail Assault Rifle, you were probably surprised, if not immediately turned off by the gun. After all, when 99.99% of the other guns in Borderlands 2 fire projectiles directly at targets, and then you have a gun that fires in like this massive arc, you wouldn't really know what to do with it. However, over time, you may end up realizing that if you simply aim downwards, so you can get the Hail's projectiles to basically arc into targets, rather than letting the projectiles fall or hail down on them, then you start to notice that the hail is actually quite powerful. With this said, I think what actually makes the hail surprisingly powerful is the unique combination of attributes that make up the gun. The hail has an above average critical bonus, you can heal for the percentage of the damage you deal, and the ability to spawn an unlisted projectile after a certain distance is pretty powerful and makes the gun pretty potent. But if you want the hail, you can acquire one by completing the final round of the Slaughter Dome located in the fridge. And while this may be a little bit difficult of a challenge, I would say it's definitely worth it to acquire this fantastic gun. Number 3. The Becca Assault Rifle. So the Becca is probably one of the few pearlescent weapons in Borderlands 2 that actually lives up to its rarity. At first glance, it appears to be a Jacobs assault rifle with a pretty slick weapon skin. However, when you actually fire the gun, you'll notice that it spawns 3 unlisted projectiles that can hit enemies, slightly after that initial projectile. And what's awesome about this is that these projectiles deal the same amount of damage as the Becca's initial projectile. Hence, you're essentially firing 4 projectiles for the cost of 1. As you can imagine, this can be insanely powerful provided you're always scoring criticals. Now, the trick is to get the proper distancing so that you can get all 4 projectiles to hit. However, I would even say if you can't get all 4 projectiles to hit the same crit spot, and you simply got like 2 or 3 of them to, you're still going to be dealing a lot of damage. But if you want the Becca, you will need the Digistruct Peak DLC or Ultimate Vault Hunter Mode Upgrade Pack 2. And you will need to farm tubby enemies in Ultimate Vault Hunter Mode difficulty after reaching level 61. If you want to know what I think the best version of the Becca is, I would say it's one with the flush prefix. Number 2. The Avenger SMG. So, the Avenger is a pretty interesting weapon. At first glance, it has pretty good stats, and the weapon itself allows the player to regenerate SMG ammo, provided that they have the gun in hand. And as you can imagine, this ability to regenerate ammo can prove to be extremely useful, whether you're using guns like the Sandhawk or the Babymaker. However, what's often not talked about when it comes to the Avenger is its reload. Unlike the vast majority of other TDR weapons of Borderlands 2, which are simply thrown at enemies and can potentially deal insane amounts of damage, the Avenger functions more like a bouncing Betty grenade that will eventually explode, among some other interesting properties. In fact, you might be interested to know that the Avenger's reload damage can be affected by the B-Shield, in addition to both gun and grenade damage bonus. And from my experience on OP8, I've seen the Avenger reach as high as 500 million reload damage, which is both delightfully absurd and amazing at the same time. Now, if you want the Avenger, you can acquire it from either Legendary Loot Midgets or oh my god what the hell from the Digistruct Peak Challenge. Just keep in mind that you only need the first Ultimate Vault Hunter Mode Upgrade Pack rather than the second. And finally, number 1. The Pimpernel Sniper Rifle. While a lot of veterans know why the Pimpernel is so good, I would say there's a good chance that you might be fairly unimpressed with the Pimpernel the very first time that you used it. After all, what use are those orbs that are flying up in the air if you're aiming at an enemy's head? However, if you aim at the enemy's crotch or their knee instead of their head, you can actually get those secondary orb projectiles to hit the enemy. And if you have Zero's bore skill, you can actually get those secondary orbs to hit multiple times, vastly increasing your damage. This property actually makes the Pimpernel quite possibly the strongest single-shot sniper rifle in Borderlands 2, provided that you aim at the right part of an enemy, and you can get all 5 of those projectiles to hit. I would say the best part about the Pimpernel, though, is how easy it is to get. All you have to do is complete the Don't Copy That Floppy side quest mission in the Captain Scarlett DLC, and when you turn the quest back into Censorbot, you will receive a Pimpernel. But alright guys, I think that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like, click the bell to join the notification squad, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.